Today, we're here to talk about this book. We're here to talk about Ask, the Bridge from Your Dreams to Your Destiny. And like Mark, I had mentioned to you in an email before, the beginning of the book starts with a parable, starting with Michaela. And I don't think I've ever said this about a book before, but like kind of got me emotional, which was kind of weird, but like it was just super cool. It's just an awesome start to the book. And sometimes, like before chapter 1, I used to convince myself to like not read it until like the book page number says 1, but I was so glad that I actually read that parable leading up to the book. But anyways, I just want to say I love that part of the book. I actually want to start today with kind of a personal experience and a personal question. So one of the biggest untold lessons that I feel like I've learned from my father is I feel like has unapologetic curiosity. I know when I was young growing up and me and my sister sometimes would like cringe when he would ask somebody a question because we were like, oh, they don't want to answer that. Like why would you ask them that question? And I feel like that's still a part of me today. Sometimes I don't ask somebody else a question because I fear that they either don't want to be asked that or they don't want to answer it or something to that nature. And so what advice can you give me in regards to not feeling that way and not holding myself back from asking the question for that reason?
Well, first of all, I love the question, and I think it goes everywhere because I had unabashed curiosity, and even one of my daughters, we were at a great meal, and there's a great author right across the table, Dean Koontz, he writes horror, and that's not the zone I write, but I wanted to meet him, and I knew that it was there. I said, Dad, you just can't go up and walk up and tell people stuff and ask them questions. She was a teenager, and she was sophomoric, and she knew everything. And I thought, wow. So what we did in our book is we said, hey, look, there's 7 roadblocks to asking, and one comes out of unworthiness, and you say, well, am I going to look less worthy? And get rejected? Because everyone's got to make themselves rejection proof, especially in these times. You got to become bulletproof. Then we doubt whether we're worthy to ask a question. What if it's a question that makes me look stupid and all that kind of stuff? Then we're naive about what we can ask. These are the 7 roadblocks that we cover so well. And excusology, I'll just make an excuse. I'll meet him or her sometime. Well, I've never met him again, and I really had some questions. I did read some of his books. And then we got fear, which is false evidence appearing as real. And fear is running rampant right now. Yesterday, we decided we're going to do a product on overcoming that for everybody because there's 5 kinds of fear. And then pattern paralysis, where, my teacher's teacher was Albert Einstein. Bucky Fuller was my teacher, and his teacher was Albert. And Einstein always said, if you keep doing what you're doing and expect a new result, you're cuckoo crazy. And then last but not least, disconnection, which because so many of us have gone into this cocoon for almost a year now, we're feeling disconnected and discombobulated in a lot of things. That's a quick overview and maybe too broad brush, and we can go very specific if you want. But I'm cheering you on to become you've done 245 episodes. God bless you for having such a big podcast. So you got to be good at questions, and I'm glad you got out of the withholds of your dad, and hopefully you thank him for inspiring you to ask endless questions.
Yeah, no, it definitely has, and I felt like it was kind of when I started the podcast, or a little bit before the podcast, is when I really felt myself get a little bit more and more curious about a lot of different things. And so, how much do you feel like curiosity is both like natural or born versus learned? And obviously I'm sure some of it is learned. So the second part of that question is, how can you actually like activate and stimulate curiosity out of somebody?
Right. No, it's such a great question. And, we talk about that in the book. The fact is, we all come into this world as children completely uncorrupted in our ability to ask. And we ask for everything. We're endlessly curious. We want to know who, what, when, where, why, how. And we also want to ask for more. And we're not afraid to ask for more or ask for what we want, right? Because that is our little human spirit growing and evolving. And that is the very thing, those questions that we demand answers to, is the very thing that allows us as that little human being to keep growing and learning and becoming something new every day. In fact, it's the only way that we can grow and learn and evolve. And then over time, depending on the way we were parented, and it sounds like your dad was awesome at this and just a great example, but a lot of people's parents weren't. It's like, quit asking questions. You're going to sound stupid. Don't bug me, you know? So the way we were parented, the events that happened in our schooling, you know, was there an environment that fostered questions? There's like, just listen to what you're told and don't ask so many questions, you know, that sort of thing. All those little things start to become the baggage that we carry around. And then we go on to jobs where opinions aren't valued. They don't even ask us for feedback, you know, or if you try, it's like, no, we told you what to do, just do it. And over time, and then just basic life rejection, that beautiful innate ability to ask questions, to be curious, to do it shamelessly, just gets crushed out of us. And it's so sad because the studies show that we looked at a lot of studies, and the studies show that most people are afraid to ask. And going into the study, what they found was most people thought if they asked for help, advice, information, or just ask someone to help them with something, that they would be perceived as being stupid, ignorant, uninformed, or that the person would just be irritated, annoyed, and think that, you know, you're just obnoxious and pushy. And the studies reveal just the opposite. So our perception going into asking for something is very different than the reality. The reality is, if you ask someone something, generally people are pretty open and willing. In fact, there's an 80% more likely chance that you're going to get your request answered in some way to the best of their ability, right? And so there's honestly like no reason not to ask. But what holds us back are these programs that we've taken on over a lifetime. And Mark mentioned, we talk about those very specifically in the book called The 7 Roadblocks to Asking. And what we found is most people carry at least one, if not more, or even all of those roadblocks. I know as we determine the roadblocks, we realize that at times in our lives, we've experienced every one of those, and probably all of us have. So super important to look at those in the book, super important to look at the stories and realize, how you can overcome your roadblocks, because there's so much waiting for you on the other side. If you are just willing to suspend your fear, get over your roadblocks, and become that infinitely curious person again, that's willing to ask for anything, really.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I definitely agree in that all of us have multiple roadblocks to varying degrees. And to kind of go back on one of the things that you said, we kind of create narratives in our head, and the narrative that I feel like I told myself and still sometimes tell myself in regards to not asking the question is like, oh, they don't want me to get too personal with them. They don't really want to answer that question. But the reality of the situation is, most of the time, like when I saw my dad ask a question, or if I end up asking the question, like the person is flattered that you asked about them, or they're just like flattered that you care about their opinion in the first place.
It is so true. And that's what the studies show. The other studies done by Harvard show that if you ask more questions in a business situation or even a personal relationship, like a dating situation, the person that you're asking of that relationship, they are more likely to find you likable and want to do more business with you. Also, in the dating scenario, you're more likely to get a second date when you ask more questions, are more curious about that person. It is a great compliment to someone when you care about their opinion, when you care about what they have to say about a particular thing. So, yeah, it's pretty awesome.
No, I completely agree. Oh, go ahead.
Nick, with your permission, I want to go back. She wrote The Fable of Michaela, and she was going to be doing it in 4 parts in the book. And I said, no, honey, we got to squish it together. This is so magnificent. It's going to be the world's longest fable to start a book rather than a fairy tale book. What is it that caused you to have emotionality? What part of the story about Michaela?
I think it was the fact that she just didn't seem like she had a whole lot of belief in herself, that anything she did had an impact. And then when countless people were recognizing her for her impact that she was making on the entire community, and like that part was just so cool, because she just didn't believe in herself. And like, to me, that's my biggest pain when I coach people or I see people and they don't believe in themselves that they can be something great. That gives me the most pain. And so like when I saw that in her, that's what made me emotional.
And that's really the place we're at right now. People have had the belief squished out of them. And what we're saying is, and why we think Ask is working so well is we're saying, hey, look, everybody's telling us they don't get one book, they get three. They get one for themselves, one for their partner, whether it's a spousal partner, business partner, mastermind partner, church partner, and they're going over every question and they're transforming, coming out of this cocoon and saying, hey, wait a second, what they ask themselves, the three questions we ask, who am I with others and who am I in God? And those kind of questions. And as you start to ask them, you unfold, you transform. And that's what she did. That's why that story is so, to me, it's every man and every woman. It's a compelling human narrative that all of us have some self-belief issues that we got to work on and sculpt to make our great, grander self. And that's why the subtitle of the book, Ask, the bridge from your dreams to your destiny, because all of us have a destiny. If you're alive, you got a destiny. Even though you've been shut down for a year, and even though you might own a restaurant in Nashville that's not open right now, you've still got a great destiny.
Yeah. I definitely think that we all struggle from varying levels of the self-belief issue and definitely need to ask our way out of it a lot of times. But last thing I wanted to say before I kind of want to dive into one of the roadblocks in particular was, you mentioned how the studies show that you're going to have a better relationship if you ask. And there's a saying that to be the most interesting person in the room, be the most interested person in the room, and ask the most questions. But I want to dive into, I think it might be the fourth roadblock, excuses, where, Mark, you talk about a story with your brother Bailey, where I think you dropped him off at the airport after him spending a few days or holiday with you, whatever it was, and you thought he was going to be fine, but I guess he had never really been to the airport by himself. Long story short, he ends up missing his flight, but you don't find out until maybe his daughter called you later that night or the next day or whatever it was and said, like, where is he? And you were like, what do you mean? He's not there. And you ended up finding out that he did not know how to navigate his way through the airport, but he was too prideful to ask anybody for help or ask you for help. And I think that's something that all of us, I know that I can relate to a lot, in the sense of being too prideful to ask and to feel like to show somebody else that you don't know the answer to something that might be seemingly simple. And so question is, like, how do we overcome being too prideful and being okay with asking that question?
Well, first of all, it is my brother, and he did come here to Arizona and visited us after his wife had died, who we absolutely love and adore, but she dragged him through the airports. Here's a guy running the Atomic Energy Commission, a really smart guy. So I knew he'd been in a lot of airports. So I said, when I'm dropping him off, I said, do you want me to go in? Are you sure you know how to get there? Because, we traveled up until COVID 250,000 miles a year and been to 80 countries. And, even in places where there is no English in France or in Italy, there was no signage in English, and we still made it through. So my assumption was he'd make it through. Long story short, all of us got to be willing to say, hey, look, I know to you this is going to sound like a stupid question. And in my case, I do that almost daily on the computer because, when I wrote that book with Art Linkletter, I said, we teach our kids to read and they need to teach us how to use all the social media, all the electronic media. And our son is just great. I call him up and say, hey, I'm having this little hiccup yesterday on a computer because we need to do a show. And I couldn't figure out how to get through. He said, just do this, that, and you'll have it. And all of us, and you got to be willing to admit it. And I'm sure he looks at me and goes, God, the old man on some levels is a dolt. He's supposed to be smart. He's an idiot. And it's okay. I'm willing to be an idiot because I need to get the result. That's the point. All of us are here for two reasons. Genesis 1:28. You're here to, if you're made in the image and likeness, you're supposed to create, then you're supposed to create. And then number two, back to your question earlier, you're here to contribute. And how much can you contribute? Because that's your destiny, to source and serve other people.
Gotcha. Oh, I like it. Crystal, I want to kind of go to a story from you. So you were married at 17, and then 3.5 years later, 3.5 years later, you were getting divorced with a 2-year-old. So do you think you would be where you are today and as successful as you are today if that experience had not happened?
No, it's such a great question, Nick. And I'm so glad you brought it up, because it's easy to look at people who have this, level of success, and you think, oh, it's just gone so easy for them and nothing really bad has happened and they just kind of sail through life. And it's never true. I promise you, if you really get into people's stories, that that's not the case. And often they've been through tremendous adversity, but it's that adversity that made them stronger or better. And that's certainly the case for me and for Mark. But yeah, I was just one of those kids who thought, high school's easy, thought I'd accelerate my curriculum, graduate at 16, marry my boyfriend 5 years older. And boy, it turned out to be a bad life plan, So I'm on my 2.5 years later, baby on my hip, in a new city, no friends, no family, no idea how I was going to support myself. And then I applied for the food stamps. And, it was at that moment where I was standing at the grocery store line, just getting ready to exchange my diapers and food for those food stamps. And I had a huge epiphany. And I mean, it was so noticeable that I almost felt like this light was shining on my head, and it was this moment of truth, but a question dropped into my mind. And that question was, how did I get here? First question. It was actually two questions. How did I get here? Followed by a second question that was, are you doing the best you can to get out of this situation, or are you taking the easy way out? And it was almost like, whoa, I knew exactly the second I asked that question, or it came from somewhere in my mind. And I feel like, if we're open to God and the universe, those questions will come to us. And I knew, honestly, I wasn't doing the best I can. And I felt like I was taking the easy way out. So I just had this total pivot in my mind and heart where, as I'm turning over those food stamps to the cashier, I'm like, this will not be my future. And I had already decided, when I answered that question, I already decided I'm not doing the best I can. This is not going to be my future. So I went home to my little apartment where I was getting eviction notices every single month. And I didn't have any answers, but I had questions. I knew I had questions. And it's so freeing when you realize that. So I just started asking, who would hire me tomorrow? What could I do? Remembered the minute I started asking that I'd heard on the radio about Kelly Girls temp service agencies. So I called them up. I'm like, how do I apply? Told me how to do it. I applied for it, and I start getting these job offers. You work for 2 weeks or 3 days. And then realized there were 2 other temp service agencies. So I applied for all of them so I'd get better jobs and just pick the ones I like. And I'm filling in at attorneys' offices and doing sales at conventions and stuff like that. And pretty soon I'm starting to love working and love meeting these people and love working with people, and decided at that point to put myself through real estate school. Meantime, I had, someone hit me up and said, you should go do some modeling. So I thought, what do I have to lose? I stumble into the biggest agency. I'm like, will you sign me to be a model? Fortunately, they did, after they made me practice walking the runway, which was really awkward because I'd never done it. It's like those moments where you either humble yourself and just go for it. But fortunately, after a few corrections, they're like, okay, we'll sign you. But I ended up getting some national television commercials, and some television commercials that went national. So literally a little more than a year and a half from that moment I'm turning over the food stamps for my diapers and groceries, I'm now working for the biggest home builder in our valley. I'm a licensed realtor. I became salesman of the month, months in a row, top #1 salesperson. And I'm getting all of these residuals and royalties. And because I was making royalties, you have to join Screen Actors Guild to get them. I'm suddenly getting the best insurance benefits for myself and my son. Talk about a wild pivot. But I would think back and I'm like, whoa, how did I save myself right then? Because I was sliding into my own victimization, and I had every excuse. I'm young, I'm a mother, no one's helping me. And it would have been so easy to slide down that slippery slope. But I'm just so thankful that I asked those questions. Those questions came to my mind, and they're tough questions. Sometimes we have to parent ourselves. Sometimes we need to ask ourselves the tough question. Am I doing the best I can, or am I taking the easy way out? And then have the courage to answer it honestly. Because when you do, things will change dramatically in your life if you're willing to do it.
Yeah. Well, and that's why I asked the question, Crystal, because I feel like so many people don't realize they're falling into the easy way out, because it can sometimes just all of a sudden, you can wake up one day, or you can be in the line one day and just figure out that it's happening. And to me, that was a really powerful question that I read as well. I wrote it down in my notes, and the question was this: are you taking the easy way out by finding ways to just survive? Or are you tapping into your own skills and talents and trying harder to find ways to thrive? And because I think that's so pertainable to so many people. And I think this was maybe my note underneath it. I was like, in the short term, it's easier and it's less work to just survive, but you'll just be surviving your entire life if you do that. And so kind of a question for either of you is, how can somebody make sure that they prevent falling into that complacency or falling into that just wanting to survive?
Well, by the way, I've been there, so I want to take you through it very specifically. I'm going to do my own story, and then we'll do the principles hidden in the story with your permission. 1974, I'm 26, I'm a hot shot. I built the Wall Street Record Club, Botanical Gardens, aviaries, homes, all out of plastic, PVC, polyvinyl chloride. Wrong timing, because the Arabs came along and said, we can write checks so big your banks will bounce. And our interest rate went up to 28%. So it was a really rough time. And it was, all of a sudden they go, oh my God, what if I go bankrupt? Well, if you ask the wrong question, you get the wrong result. So I checked a book out of the library, how to go bankrupt by yourself, and I did. So for 6 months, I'm sleeping in front of another guy's room in his sleeping bag on the floor outside his bedroom door. And all of a sudden it came to me, back to the questions. You got to ask yourself, ask others, ask God. And I asked myself, what do I really want to do? This is where you got to go. You got to go in your deeper innermost to know where you want to go. And I said, I want to talk to people that care about things that matter, that would make a life-changing difference. And I go down to my 3 roommates. I'm living in Hicksville, Long Island, New York. And I say, hey, you guys know anyone that's young, not a lawyer, not a doctor, not a celebrity, not a Broadway star, a movie star that's talking and making money? I said, yeah, there's this kid out in Hawthorne. He's doing a great job. And by the way, I'm not going, so here's my ticket. You take my ticket. Yeah. Well, I race out there, and this guy mesmerizes the audience for 3 hours. Named Chip Collins. Later, we got to be great friends. But I walk up to him and I said, hey, I want to do what you do. He said, look, kid, chance of you doing this and making it 1 in 1,000, get out of here. I said, wait, let me buy you lunch. I'm asking you, can I buy you lunch? He said, yeah, and then I'm going to ask him every question I could about how to do it. He said, well, look, you can ask me, but you got to stay out of real estate. I own this market in 5 boroughs. You do life insurance, which you know a lot about. And so he said, he told me what to do, what the questions to ask. And the final question was great, to the general agent or manager, do you want to cut the check or have your secretary cut it? I thought, oh, what a great question. Never heard that way before. That's why you got to mentor and have mentees. Anyhow, I did 1,000 talks a year for the first 3 years in the business. And Tony Robbins and I were talking one time, and he said, only you and I have ever done that much, because if you want massive success, you got to take massive action in the right direction. Anyhow, people kept saying, do you have that story in a book? And I wrote a book called, first book was Stand Up, Speak Out, and Win. And I said to the audience, this is not a New York Times bestseller. It is not a national bestseller, but it's my bestseller. And I want to sign it to you, your wife, your kids, and even your dog if you have one. And they all laughed. But in 1 year, I earned $20,000. I tripled 20,000 books at $10 each, made $200,000. I tripled my income, changed my life and lifestyle, because you got to pivot toward what's going to make the greatest profit, because profit is a result of service, the quality of service plus the quantity of service equal with a positive mental attitude equals unlimited compensation.
That's powerful.
Fast, I can go back on any of it, but I'll let you have it.
Yeah, no, I like it. And I wanted to touch on that story as well, because I think it was so important. What do you think, looking back on it, what would you have done differently to make sure that at 26 you didn't go bankrupt? Like if you were to make decisions beforehand to prevent that situation, what would that have been? Was it like a mental thing, or was it like the work that you were doing, or what was it?
By the way, remember, one of the things we write in our books is change your perspective, change your life, because your perspective determines your life. If I had not gone bankrupt, I wouldn't have become a speaker and the world's best-selling author. So it was exactly what had happened. It got me out of the wrong business, which I call now my best, worst experience. And I was hurting for certain. Boy, I wanted to kill myself a couple of times. It's that line in the last line in Genesis, what you meant for my harm, God meant for my good. And the story of Joseph and the many-colored coat. And that's where everyone is today. I wouldn't cancel that. That's where 80% of the Americans are. They're frightened, they're scared, they're uptight, they're depressed, they're despondent, they're disconsolate, and that means you've got something phenomenal in front of you. But from our point of view, based on the fact that a couple of days ago we got 121 letters in one day, you got to read the book, go over it with somebody, every question, and really discover who your higher, better self is.
Mm-hmm.
I love it. I love it. So I want to go a little bit deeper into roadblock number 2, roadblock 2 of 7, and again for a personal reason, but I also just think it's everybody. A lot of people experience the same thing. And the second roadblock is naivete or being naive. And I think that one of the things I found when trying to start my business and grow my business is that I wasn't asking myself big enough questions. I wasn't asking myself like what is like really, really possible. I was kind of limiting myself and capping myself. And I don't know what the reasoning is. I think it's just because I don't know what it is, but a lot of people grow up with limited possibilities. And so they just don't know what is actually possible. And so basically, how can we like reframe our mind to stop asking smaller questions and ask bigger questions? Because like I know that I do it, but I still find myself doing it more and more often. So like, how can we ask bigger questions that are more powerful?
Right. No, it's such a good question, Nick. And I just think really quickly, I just want to share that story because I think it helps to give you a lot of perspective of how that's happening in your own life. And I tell the story like my daughters were born 16 months apart. We hired this beautiful Filipino lady and she came every day and would make these beautiful dishes from her homeland. And one day she shows up and cuts this fruit up on a plate, hands it to me. And it's this juicy orange fruit. And I taste it, I bit into it. I'm like, wow, this is awesome. This is the best fruit I've ever tasted. Melda, what is it? She goes, it's a mango. And I go, mango? How come I've never had a mango before? Because I thought I was really worldly. I traveled all over Europe multiple times. And I said, where did you get this? Thinking she had to import this from the Philippines. And she goes, at the grocery store. And I'm like, these are at the grocery store? I passed these by the grocery store, the best fruit in the whole world. How could I miss that? I'm so naive that these exist. I just don't know. I just don't know that the best fruit ever is right there for me. And I walk past it every day. So, I grew up in Idaho where we have a lot of potatoes, but we don't have mangoes. And, so I didn't have any experience with them. And that's what we do every day. It made me think about it deeply, like, who else am I missing? What else am I missing in my life that could be so amazing? What people am I passing every day that could be my best advocate, my next best friend, someone that I could forge, a great idea with and create something really great with, or someone that I could just help that really needs me. We walk past people all the time. We just, okay, now I've got my own business, or we just aren't even aware of it. We're not aware that there are these other things. There's more for us out there. And same thing with opportunities. What opportunities are we passing by every day? And because we're just naive, we just don't even know. And so I would say, really, this is the time to become wildly curious again, because it's that curiosity that's going to lead you to those people, those opportunities, those things that you don't even know exist that are going to change your life. I promise you, if you look at them, if you pay attention to them, if you focus on these things a little bit more, there's so much information out there for us, but we need to look for the things and the people around us that could be offering us something new, and look at life with, through a whole new lens. We waste a lot of time in our lives. We're just rolling around on social media, listening to a lot of negative stuff. What a waste of time. I mean, look for the great things that are happening, look for, I love, Mark's wildly curious and I am too, but I mean, he's always throwing me like all these cool stuff first thing in the morning. He gets on and looks at the news and it's like, look what Elon Musk is doing now. This is going to affect our lives. Elon Musk put 1,000 satellites into space and he's going to put 40,000 and he's going to do this worldwide uncensored free internet for everyone. So if you're a farmer in Pakistan or, in Greenland, you can get the internet. And so it connects us all. And so it equalizes everything. And I think there are going to be so many opportunities if we stay positive. We're in this politically charged environment and divided environment. We need to stop dividing and start remembering we're human beings and start thinking about how do we create a beautiful utopia in our world? How do we, and it's really by connecting to one another, connecting to these amazing opportunities that technology will build for us, will bring to us. And a lot of these technology breakthroughs will transcend governments. I mean, it's going to be amazing, but never has there been a more important time for each of us to be our best. And we need to sit down with ourselves and take that asking journey so we're ready. and we're prepared and we're actually excited. We're not hopeless. We're excited. You know, we need to sit there and ask ourselves, ask others, and ask God. And Mark and I spend the first hour of every day, like in this meditation, prayer kind of session where we ask these questions, you know, redoing our priorities. Are we on track? What's important to us today? All of these things that sort of re-vector you and keep you on your path, keep you on that bridge from your dreams to your destiny.
Yeah, no, and I definitely think that the aware, like from the beginning of the story, the awareness of knowing that you're not asking the right questions, or there's like a gap between what you think is there and how much really actually is there. The awareness of that is huge. And you know, touching on the Elon Musk thing, like the bigger the questions that you ask, the bigger the answers you're gonna come up with. And so that's, I mean, the bigger the answers you come up with, the bigger impact that you're gonna have. And so I think we need to, you know, when we question ourselves, we need to continually challenge ourselves. Are we asking the big enough questions right now, or are we limiting what we're capable of? Next, I kind of want to go through a series of what I've written down as like of most important questions, if you will. And so for both of you guys, is there has there been a most important question that you've asked in the past, but you didn't really realize the significance of it until a little bit later?
Yeah, I'm going to hit that first, and then she can hit it with your permission. I really think this thing, you know, ask yourself, ask others, ask God. Ask God is usually forgotten. And what it means is, you know, if you don't know your destiny, 400 times before you go to sleep, you say, God, what's your destiny for me? God, what's your destiny for me? God, what's your destiny for me? Your deeper, innermost, highermost subconscious mind will answer, but you've got to be ready with a pen and paper and tell your sweetiekins, hey, sweetie, I just listen to Mark and Crystal, and they may be whack jobs, but, you know, I got to have paper next to bed because the answer is going to come. At the simplest level, when I came out of bankruptcy and I was trying to get bigger like you are right now, back right now, 1974, making $100,000 a year is like making $500,000 a year now, and I wanted to do that. So I'd read The Magic of Believing by Claude Bristol. It said, go to bed and meditate 400 times. And I thought, wow, I'll just do it 400. I'm going to make 400 tomorrow. And in the middle of the night, 2:58 in the morning, it came through. Bill Widener, State Mutual. I'd never heard of him, never heard of State Mutual. I was working with Metropolitan, Prudential, all the big guys, Guardian. But I'm out cold calling. I did a seminar. I'm cold calling before I do the next seminar out in Hawkbog. Go into this building that's a Met building, and it says Bill Widener, State Mutual. And I went, holy cow. Because I had it written down. I had it on equivalently a sticky in my pocket. Walk in, nobody's at the front desk. It's lunchtime. I rushed to the guy's office. Within 5 minutes, he gave me a check for $400. And I thought, whoa, this works. Now, the difference, $400 a day times 250 work days is $100,000. Ask a bigger question. I sat with the best salesman in the world right after that, Ben Feldman. And he said, Mark, you should be making $1 million a year. And he said, it's only 10. And I said, I don't get it. What do you mean 10? He said, the difference between 400 a day and 4,000 a day is 10. 4,000 times 250 is $1 million a year. If your kid's life depended on it, could you make $4,000 tomorrow? I said, yes, sir. And suddenly I opened it up. So back to my cliche, which fits what you just said, the size of your question determines the size of your result. If you ask little questions like, how am I going to get a job? How am I going to get along? How am I just going to not die? Those aren't bad questions, but they're not meaty, strong, bold, hearty questions. They're opening opportunity, promotion, advancement, and expansion for you and everyone else. Because when you do better, you can help everyone else do better. In New York, Andrew Carnegie's house, first thing he wrote in marble at the third grade education is, no one can get rich without enriching all others.
That's good. That's good. Crystal, did you have a question that you feel like was the most important question that you've asked, but you didn't realize the significance of asking it until later?
You know, I think the most important question for me that I've continued to ask, and especially I feel as my spiritual journey has progressed, that's become so important is that, you know, God, what is the greatest expression of me for which I was made? You know, because I really think that's the ultimate. You were made with a certain set of, you know, your own talents, skills, understandings. There's nobody like you. And so the ultimate state of that is your ultimate state of expression. You know, how do you become the ultimate expression of you? How do I become the ultimate expression of me, for which I was made to the nth degree of what I could do, how I could serve, how could I could influence in a positive way? And I think as I continue to ask that question, I've been asking it for a long time, my life keeps evolving in ever better ways. You know, there were times when I thought I was stuck. I was in a marriage that I wasn't super happy in. I mean, happy in a lot of ways. I love my kids and things, but just, you know, and I don't want to get into that, not without blaming anybody, but you know, those things happen. And so, but those things are hard to, when
now she's happy.
When you're established in a job or an institution or a marriage, that's true. You think, gosh, there's just, sometimes you don't see a way out of it. But when you go to that bigger place where you're just saying, you know, show me what the greatest expression of me is, because that's what I need to be in this life. I need to be that. I can't, if I'm not that, then I'm always going to feel this sense of like dissatisfaction or loss, really. And I think that's how a lot of us feel sometimes. But when we start embracing that question and looking for the answers and living in wonder, you have to live in wonder and curiosity, because the answers are going to flow to you. You need to be able to recognize them. And for me, that happened in profound ways. I mean, I feel like mine and Mark's coming together was exactly an answer to that question. And I had already been divorced, and I wasn't sure if I'd ever get married again. I said, I might just be by myself the rest of my life. So I need to make sure this decision, am I okay with that? You know? And once I was okay with that, it's like, great, keep moving forward. And so never in a million years. And we came together in this really bizarre way. And we know it was divine intervention, because you're asking those questions. You're asking God, you're asking the universe, you're asking yourself, show me this path, and it will be there for you. I promise.
Yeah. I mean, I liked, you know, the question of how can I show the highest expression of me? I'm botching what you said exactly, but like literally over the past week or week and a half, your book and reading your book has sparked me to ask, like, every single day, like, how can I serve the most people in the way that is most uniquely me? Like, that's the question that I've been trying to ask myself, and I'm going to try to stay disciplined to continue to ask myself that. On a similar note, is there a question when you were back in maybe 26, Mark, whatever age, kind of, you know, young, was there a question that you did not ask that you wished you would have asked earlier?
I know what.
Yeah, by the way, because I do have perspective being age 73 now, but I'm going to be 127 options for renewal. I was making what I thought was a lot of money, but I could have tenfolded that if I had just asked, why don't I write more books faster? I was so happy selling one book that I could have sold 2 and doubled the income. I could have sold 10 and had a whole little package. And I don't know why. I just was so, I was over enthusiastic. I've never said it quite this way before, but I was so over enthusiastic and exuberant about just my little bit of success that I wasn't being my own best me at that time, which is, you know, your whole show's, you know, what was the best me in earning? What is the best me spiritually? What is the best me in relationship? What is the best me? Well, now I know that I got to not only write books, but I got to sell books and create other programs and run the businesses. That's the best for me and the best for us.
I like that. I like that. How about you, Crystal? Anything that you wish you would have asked yourself earlier?
You know, you can look back and look at your mistakes and sort of second guess, but I almost think that everything that has happened so far has set me up for my realizations and successes and breakthroughs. You know, it's made me become who I am today. So it's really hard for me to think back and regret that. I mean, there were a few things maybe I wish I would have pushed a little harder on. I mean, I'll tell you, I know one. When I was modeling, I got booked by Walmart to do their top national ads, and they cast me out of this huge cattle call for thousands of girls for whatever reason. And I honestly think it's just they like my personality, but because I related to them, I would talk to the people, I would get personal with them, personable. And so I got booked for the teenage role and for the young mother role in these ads that were going to run. And I had booked this trip with my boyfriend at the time too. And so he's like pressuring me to come with him. And I'm like, the relationship seems so important. And so I canceled the Walmart thing, and it was like huge. Like it would have been ongoing. And they were so upset. I'm like, they'll just grab another girl and they'll be fine. Then they started threatening my modeling agency. They're like, if we don't get Crystal, we're canceling your whole agency. So the pressure was incredible. And I think I do second guess that decision. I wish I would have, I feel like I caved to pleasing my boyfriend who we did end up getting married, but I wish I would have chosen myself, because that was just a trip. We could do another trip. I think sometimes there were times when I gave up my career acceleration for, somebody else's, like, to make somebody feel good. And so probably that would be mine.
Yeah, I got you. I love it, because you started off not really knowing the question. Then you got there. You're like, I got one.
It came to me. I'm like, oh man, why did I do that? That is the one thing I'd be like, I would do that differently.
Yeah. All right. Well, the second to last question here is, I think that in order to get closer to the best version of yourself, for me personally, I try to, my goal every single day is to try to gain a little bit more clarity as to what I think the best version of myself looks like and what the best version of myself is capable of. And then my goal every single day is to try to reverse engineer that person into reality. And so a question that I've found really beneficial for myself that I kind of discovered about 1.5 years ago is what I'm getting ready to propose to you guys for each of you individually. Is there a particular skill or piece of knowledge that the best version of yourself has that you don't yet currently have?
We'll both get to answer that, of course, and it's a great question. But I think we believe that the visualization is the most important part. This is where you close your outer eyes, go inside the secret place of the Most High in the eye of faith and a stage of your imagination, and you see what does it look like that you're going to be doing. Like right now, we are rocking selling books, but we think the whole marketplace is going to open up. We're going to get to speak again. And right before COVID shut us down, we had 2 giant launch talks for this in Florida in April and May, one with 11,000 in Florida and one with 15,000 in Washington, D.C. We think those are going to come back and are going to be bigger than ever. We're going to do them with music. And one of the people that I think we'll do some with, remember, this is my dream and vision, is with Dolly Parton, because I only have 200,000 or 300,000 people at a time. And she is just amazingly positive. And I think the world needs to come back to positivity. So that's my best. What's yours, my dear?
So I think my future self knows the way that I'm going to reach, millions more people than I'm reaching right now, to really, truly help give them a new beginning and a new start, and really understand what it is inside of them that's holding them back.
I like that. Well, Mark, if you ever do it with Dolly Parton here in Nashville, you got to let me know. I would come.
She is the cover of People magazine, which I happen to buy, and it just is amazing.
Just because she was on it, he saw it.
Yeah. One of our great musicians friends is got the same agent that she does, so they're in discussions now. And I said, look, we used to run these giant rallies, inclusive of Nashville, with PMA rallies, and some names you won't know, but Paul Harvey and Zig Ziglar and Cavett Robert and myself, and back then Neil Diamond or John Denver, and we blew it out of back then. The most you could have was 17,000 in an arena. Today, arenas can hold more. So, and I think there are going to be some outside, and it'll be very exciting. And I'm sure we'll do Nashville because it's one of the crowningly good cities in the planet.
Yeah, I love it here. Well, before I ask the last question, I want to acknowledge you guys. Crystal, you first, for being able to, when you were 20 years old in the line for food stamps, be able to have that realization, that epiphany of like, wait, this is not going to be my life. I'm not going to accept this. I'm not going to take the easy way out. I'm not going to be complacent. I'm going to start taking action. And then you did. And, 1.5 years later, you were doing modeling and working in real estate and doing really well for yourself. And so I think a lot of people are doing that. And I want to, or a lot of people are in that situation and maybe aren't taking action as quickly and as profoundly as you did. And so I think that's really special.
Thank you. Thank you, Nick. I really appreciate that acknowledgement. Thank you.
Of course. And Mark, you as well, back when, in 26, when you went bankrupt, you flipped it around pretty quickly. Within 2 months, you were doing 4 talks a day. And then, like you said, I forget the exact figure, but 1,000 talks in a year, like Tony Robbins, to be able to have the ability to ask yourself that bigger question. And instead of 400, how can it be 4,000? Instead of 100,000, how can it be 1 million? And for you to be able to take that and run with the career that you've been able to have, like we haven't talked anything about chicken soup for the soul or anything like that, but be able to run with that and have the career that you have, it's obviously had a profound impact on you and so many countless others.
We think we've had 1 billion readers worldwide, and I could not be more thankful that I got to do something big. And we're, like I told you, we're not done. We think chicken soup and 7,000 talks to multiple millions of people, and now hundreds of thousands, maybe 100 million by all these podcasts we've done, is a great foundation. What we're asking everyone to do is go to Amazon, get a copy of the book, and then come to askthebookclub.com, and we're going to give you a whole story about our book, Ask, and take you to become deep so you can become what we call a master asker and have your life work out, and you'll get every good thing you want.
Awesome. Well, I registered for the book club yesterday, so I'm excited for it. Yeah. Well, before I ask the last question, like Mark just said, make sure you guys go get Ask the Bridge from Your Dreams to Your Destiny. I got it here. You can see it in the background there as well. You can get that on Amazon, and then go to askthebookclub.com. I'll have all that linked up in the show notes. Anywhere else, you guys are on social media, Mark, Victor Hansen, Crystal Dwyer Hansen, anywhere else that they should go and learn more about you guys and about Ask?
That's the perfect way to do it, because that's the way to connect to us. And then we'll be rolling out a lot of cool stuff this year. We really want to raise people up because we're concerned that people are so down. A lot of people have been really downtrodden by all the uncertainty. So we need to rise together. So we want to be a resource.
Amen to that. Well, guys, the last question is, I think that getting closer to the best version of yourself, I think it's a constant journey. And then I also think it's a unique journey. I think the way that I'm going to get closer to the best version of myself is a little bit different than the way that you guys are going to get closer to the best version of yourself. So again, for each of you individually, for each of you personally, if there are 3 things that you can currently do or currently work on to get closer to that best version of Mark and Crystal that you can possibly be, then what are those 3 things that you could currently do or currently work on?
I think for me, it's always a struggle, just super organize myself, because we have so much coming at us right now. So organization is important. We have so much content right now that we're putting together and try to put it in a form that out and, get it to the right people. So always prioritizing, organizing, and then just taking that action. It is just, that's what's important for me right now, because I know we have all that we need. We just need to get it out there.
So she did the specificity, so I'll do the general. Figure out what you want, which we're always doing every day in this prayer and meditation. And number 2, we put it in writing. We literally journal everything, and we got a gazillion journals. I got journals back 44 years now. Thank God I learned that a long time ago that you got a journal. And number 3, we visualize to realize. And I got a whole set of tapes on that. And obviously there's a best-selling book coming out next month that I wrote called Visualizing is Realizing, because the publisher, book sales are up 30%, and we're very thankful that they are, even though bookstores are closed, which is just sort of a mind blower to me, because I used to do so much with bookstores.
Yeah, well, those are 3 great things. I'm looking forward to getting Visualizing to realize as well. I think that's going to be awesome. And like I said, I think that's one of the biggest constant steps that we have to do to try to visualize, to gain clarity on what does the best version of ourselves look like, so that we actually can create some sort of game plan and strategy to get there.